Hello everyone, you are watching a fragment of the Countdown program from February 27, 2023. Today is Monday. See the full version on Patreon. And thanks to everyone who is becoming our patrons right now. It seems that Putin's strategy of long winding guts around his fist has failed in Ukraine. This rebellious nation is not going to give up. The strategy of long cooking proved to be excellent in Russia. The Chekist maniac put the country in a saucepan and put it on a slow fire. He boiled down the spirit of civil society, freedom of speech and the desire for democracy. Fortunately, he had all the ingredients for replacement at hand: Soviet myths, nostalgia and sweet promises of future stability. Russia, as a country, was boiled like a frog by the end of 2013. This was facilitated by the very slavish mentality of the population, which willingly joined the game. I don't see anything, I don't hear anything, I don't climb into anything. But in 2014, it was the turn of Ukraine, which opposed such a scenario, seeing what a path their son of a bitch Yanukovych had taken. Then there was the Maidan, the capture of Crimea by Putin and the hybrid invasion of the Donbass. In fact, Putin then began to cook Ukraine just as slowly, and he's been brewing it for 9 years now. A year ago, he turned on the heat, deciding on an open invasion, but something went wrong. The West did not surrender Ukraine, realizing that the Kremlin kid would not be satisfied with this dish. She will swing at Moldova, casually finish Belarus, and then take on the Baltic countries. And this is already an inevitable conflict with NATO, and here Putin cannot do without a conventional army. The invasion will be hot, with nuclear outbreaks. Therefore, the collective West decided to knock the aggressor in the teeth, but only after the Ukrainian nation has proved that it really is a nation and is ready to defend its freedom and independence to the end. It just needs a lot of weapons, which the West can supply, and this is not the Vietnamese option. When you can shoot back, use all the old stocks of weapons and fold. Here are the vital interests of the West. Needless to say, the prospect of expanding production inspired the military-industrial concerns. Having run into unrelenting resistance, ready to launch a counteroffensive, the Kremlin became thoughtful. The energy war was lost outright by Putin. Economic blows in the form of sanctions created large-scale holes in the budget of the Russian Federation, and the defeated army, replenished by incompetent schmobucks, is in the process of decomposition. The Brotherhood smelled the coming defeat with a wolf scent. Stuffing about peace in exchange for territories does not work. The nuclear tantrums of a drunken Medvedev are not perceived, and now Putin himself has mentioned the breakup into the Urals and other republics. Just such a plan has already been painted on paper by the collective West. A professional relative of Tolstoyevsky, Pyotr Tolstoy, recorded a heartfelt appeal to the West, listing the Ballet Gagarin achievements of Russia, from Mendeleev and Tchaikovsky to the present day. The fascist sobs left the answer to the question behind the scenes: what does the Putlo scum have to do with the achievements of the Imperial Theater or anyone else? The second boy's prayer is addressed to China, as to the last resort capable of straightening the trajectory of free fall. Because if China doesn't help, that's it. It remains only to sit on a nuclear missile and fly to all the Munchausen devils. Medvedev growls heart-rendingly in the fascist Izvestia. If the question of the existence of Russia itself is seriously raised, it will not be decided on the Ukrainian front. And together with the question of the further existence of the entire human civilization. And there should be no ambiguity here. We don't need a world without Russia. In the West, they probably read this nonsense, scratched their heads and agreed, you don't need it? Here, take a breath. And without your Russia, we will live on the planet even better than when it was.
Now, a year later, the NWO, it is necessary to bow to the Chinese comrades. This is the one I really dislike. But others, thanks to the amazing activity of our authorities, are no longer left. Because losing this war is everything, the end.
And what can we offer the Chinese comrades?
And the Chinese comrades have their own interests. And he is visual. If we lose this war, turmoil will occur here, and almost inevitably with a probability. No, these will still try to retain power, but they will also have a change there, a rearrangement of terms. And almost certainly, within the system or outside the system, liberals come to power. Systemic or non-systemic, it doesn't matter. Will they pull out Navalny or someone like him? Will Khodorkovsky come here? Or will they nominate someone from their midst, Nabialina, let's say, a conditional climb in? Or Gref is wonderful. Life gay of the Russian Federation. In general, I call Volodin a life gay, but he is also from the same series. Doesn't matter. That is, they will receive a purely colonial administration. And they will force this colonial administration to turn against China in the same way that Ukraine is now acting against us. Does China need it? No. China has its own interest. But watching what kind of knees our slippery snakes, the Novoogorevsko Kremlin ones make, knowing that these snakes have litter in England, in France, in the States to this day, knowing that we are supplying huge quantities of uranium to our enemies in the United States, and continue to increase our investment in the US national debt. Like the Chinese, will they trust these? The Chinese will not trust. Because, oh, someone fell. Someone could not stand it.
Become our patrons now and look further in this program. The West resolutely rejected China's peace plan, finding in it more points about the interests of China itself than of Ukraine and Europe. On the morning of February 26, several explosions occurred at the airfield in the Belarusian Mykolaiv, as a result of which a Russian A-50 early warning and control aircraft was damaged. Everyone was waiting for a response, but it did not follow. Collaborators flee from the temporarily occupied Kherson region. Since February 21, the departure of local fans of the Russian world from Olishki and Skotovsk to Bakhchisaray, Simferopol and Kerch has been marked, and since February 24, the invaders announced the so-called evacuation to everyone. Rachists are running. Spring is coming soon. The armed forces of Ukraine will come soon. Gleb Pavlovsky, a political strategist and architect of early Putinism, died at the age of 72. The death of Pavlovsky for the Putin system may be even more significant than the departure of Theory. After all, his father, a political strategist, Papa Carlo of the Bald era, died. And it is logical that the fascist Pinocchio himself is next in line. And finally, a little more about the loss of livestock at the fur farm. In Moscow, Pyotr Shuvilin died under strange circumstances. The personality is very remarkable. Shuvilin is an ex-advisor to Ramzan Kadyrov, and once the largest shadow banker, one of the main witnesses in the case of bribery of Dmitry Zaharchenko by the co-owners of GK 1520, as well as a witness in the investigation of money laundering through the laundromat, the threads from which lead to Vladimir Plahotniuc. Shuvilin knew everything about where the leaders of Chechnya, Plahotniuc, the generals of the Ministry of Internal Affairs and the FSB of Russia, as well as Putin's friend and ally, the former head of Russian Railways Vladimir Yakunin, and not only him, hide their shadow capital. Shuvilin took with him a lot of secrets, and how many more will be such? Suddenly Prekobzonov. One can only guess and wait for news from the falling stock depot, and that's it. See the full version of the program on the Patreon resource. And thanks to everyone who is becoming our patrons right now. Hugs to all. See you on Thursday. Glory to Ukraine.